How do we stop Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro from killing us and further damaging the world? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to our channel. Our question for the day: how do we stop them from killing more people? Them specifically, I'm talking about Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro. The epicenter now for the world for this pandemic has moved from the United States to the United States and Brazil. We are the two countries where this thing is completely out of control, or largely out of control. And, in the United States, you could say state by state, but in Brazil, it's like, whoo, it's totally out of control. And these two guys are essentially refusing to do anything consequential about an epidemic that is killing massive numbers of their own country's citizens. And for this, in my opinion, Bolsonaro and Trump should be brought before the International Criminal Court at The Hague and charged with crimes against humanity. What do you think? I mean, to compound the situation here, Trump is now ridiculing people who wear masks, including Joe Biden. Wearing masks is one of the most simple, low-cost, effective ways to slow down the spread of the pandemic and to reduce the number of dead people. But Trump doesn't want to smear his makeup, and so he's suggesting to his insecure white male followers that wearing a mask somehow makes a man seem less manly. He's also refusing to do anything about testing at the national level other than ordering some swabs, which are not tests and they're not test kits. They're just swabs. I mean, this isn't just an abrogation of his duties as president. In my humble opinion, this is a crime. It is intentional disinformation, this squawking about masks that he's doing. It is intentional disinformation being put forward purely for political purposes, and it is and will continue to kill people. Even worse was his ignoring and lying about the coming pandemic when he was first informed of it back in November and December. Trump and Bolsonaro knew this thing was coming, both of them from their own intelligence agencies, and if they didn't want to believe their intelligence agencies, they could read the damn newspaper, at least in December. I mean, this is when China said, hey, we've got a problem here. That was December. And then they could have said, well, let's say, okay, January or February or March. Well, eventually Trump did something in March. Bolsonaro still hasn't done anything to the best of my knowledge. But for 2.5, 3 months, they didn't even have to look at their own intelligence or look at what was going on in China. They could read the news or watch television about what was happening in Spain and Italy. And to a smaller extent in France and then later in the UK. But it really hit Spain and Italy first in a big way. The virus mutated there, so now we can identify the European version as opposed to the Asian version. The Asian version proliferates up and down the U.S. West Coast, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. The European version is all over the eastern seaboard and down to Florida. And then, of course, spring break spread it all across the Midwest. And that's going all over the country. And in both cases, either one of those could have been stopped. But Donald Trump did nothing. And now the same thing is happening in Brazil with Jair Bolsonaro. You've got countries from Taiwan to New Zealand to Norway that have gotten the virus under control. Many of these countries, New Zealand and Australia, talking about eliminating the virus altogether. Not a single person in the hospital in New Zealand right now. They've only had 7 deaths in the same period of time that we've had 100,000. 7 deaths. That's it. And now they don't even, not only do they not have somebody on a ventilator, not only do they not have somebody in an ICU in New Zealand, they don't even have a person, not one person in the hospital with COVID-19. And Trump and Bolsonaro, they did worse than nothing by spreading lies and disinformation, by sending us off, chasing down rabbit holes of hydroxychloroquine or warm weather, or it's going to go away when the summer comes, or whatever, as this virus exploded through our populations. Many of the families of people here who have died of COVID-19 in the United States have considered suing Trump, but it's nearly impossible to sue a sitting president. And Bill Barr has made it clear that the Justice Department will not hold Trump accountable for anything, up to and including, as they argued before the Supreme Court, Trump could murder somebody on Fifth Avenue, he could reload the gun and start to get ready to shoot somebody else, and you would not be able to stop him, you would not be able to try him, you would not be able to investigate him, because he's the president, don't you know? This is the Bill Barr doctrine. So you think we're going to hold him accountable for encouraging behavior that is killing Americans indirectly by a virus? I mean, we actually have stories now of people walking into supermarkets and other public places and spitting on people or coming up close and breathing on people. Or this one woman, she $35,000 worth of vegetables had to be replaced because she was spitting on them in the supermarket and screaming that she had the virus. Now, a few of these are just nutty people. I mean, they would otherwise be standing on the street corner talking about the aliens coming or 5G is going to scramble their brains or whatever. But this has now metastasized into the Trumpaverse, into the people who are listening to right-wing hate radio and watching Fox News and aggressively not wearing masks, aggressively coming up on people. Why? Because of Trump. We have people here in the United States who can't sue him and yet are the victims of his criminal malfeasance. And the rest of the world, victims of the United States and Brazil. I mean, the rest of the world is looking at us in horror. And Brazil is still exporting people. Yes, Trump stopped planes coming from Brazil to the United States, yesterday or the day before? So what? We have a worse epidemic than they do. I mean, they're catching up with us fast, but this is mind-boggling. We have the United States and Brazil. It was an amazing op-ed by Gideon Rachman, who is like one of the best financial reporters in the world, over at the Financial Times yesterday. If you have a Financial Times subscription, you can read it. And I know a lot of these papers, the Financial Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, have made a lot of their COVID-19 coverage outside the paywall, so you can still read it. You may be able to, I'm not sure, but just check out ft.com and see if Gideon Rachman's piece is up there. And he's talking about how he went to Brazil last year, and he was talking with one of the country's leading economists who said, and Rachman made, and Rachman, I believe, is British, but he made some comment about Donald Trump, and this economist said, no, we've got it worse here. Jair Bolsonaro is actually more stupid than Trump. And Rachman was like, Trump is like legendarily stupid. And this guy was like, no, the highest, Trump actually ran a multi-million-dollar enterprise. He might have run it badly, but he ran it. Jair Bolsonaro, the highest level of accomplishment of his entire life was being a captain in the army. He's an idiot. It's an amazing. So now the U.S. and Brazil have become the uncontrolled epicenters for a worldwide explosion of disease. And therefore, I think, and I'm curious what you think, if this is the most effective way to stop these guys from killing their own people and threatening the planet, that Donald Trump and his mini-Trump, Jair Bolsonaro, should be brought before the criminal court, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, and indicted and convicted for crimes against humanity.